Hey guys, Omni here. Welcome back for our reaction to New Rockstars breakdown of episode 7 of Ahsoka. I'm very kind of curious about what all they might pick apart in this episode. Honestly, this is a pretty lengthy video. I mean, like while watching, other than like some thematic cues and parallels and stuff like that, and maybe some stuff from the last episode that's carried over to inform in this one, I can't think of too many things for me, just like thinking back on the episode itself that stand out, but that's the whole reason we're here, to see the stuff we missed, get another angle, another perspective on certain events. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what all they dug up in this one. So if you're not subscribed to Rockstars, go check them out, but we're gonna go ahead and dive into this video. Here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Star Wars Ahsoka Episode 7, Dreams and Madness, which is, I think, my favorite phrase to be uttered on Ahsoka this season by Baylan back in Episode 6.
This is a land of dreams and madness.
Yeah.
Children's stories come to life.
And in this episode, from C-3PO shutting up a droid-hating senator to Thrawn giving the best ever what to his master was, I got you covered with all of the visual and symphonic details you might have missed in translations of all visible Orbash.
Dude, like the subtle but visible way Lars played that revelation was great. Fantastic. Cannot understate that at all.
Thank you again so much for supporting New Rockstars and our analyses of Ahsoka. It's been a lot of fun to try to figure out what this show is week to week with you all. And as much as I miss sleeping, writing and shooting these late into the night, the part of the night that's darkest just before the dawn, I think is where the magic happens. So to all you Wednesday Wookiees, thanks for joining me on this ride. Okay, the opening Lucasfilm bumper comes with this music from composer Kevin Kiner. Which
had like a
soft ethereal music,
Jaws moment right there.
Later.
I see her.
So really at the beginning of this episode, we're hearing the music of the Force connection between these two, but by connecting with each other, they're opening themselves up to that frequency, getting hijacked by nefarious trackers. Really, this episode leaves us with so many questions about these witches. But this episode really opens on Coruscant in the era of the New Republic. We see a New Republic government building, which is a different building than the prequel era Senate building. On this building's frontal facade is the symbol of the Coruscant Guard, which also appears over the courtroom. The Coruscant Guard were a corps of clone shock troopers with red armor who served as Coruscant's military police force, first seen in Revenge of the Sith, but showed up throughout Clone Wars. Beneath that is a blue banner that likely has a much smaller golden New Republic crest on it. This reminds us
that's what it looks like, at least.
That hung over the Amnesty Program building in The Mandalorian Chapter 19. Earlier that episode, Dr. Pershing spoke at the Coruscant Opera House that we saw in Revenge of the Sith, but there is a larger building on Coruscant that looks like this one, at least in the nighttime shot of the city in that episode of The Mandalorian.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah, it does.
That the architecture of this previous age, where there were clones, hasn't been fully paved over yet, and the New Republic is just kind of sufficing it by draping paltry banners over everything. Mission accomplished style. Instead, technically, the seat of the New Republic government is on Chandrila, Mon Mothma's homeworld, not Coruscant. In this era, the capital rotates among the core worlds, so it seems like they just set up this hearing in a repurposed police HQ. Like Senator Ziono doesn't want to give Hera a huge platform on the main Chandrilan Senate floor. He just wants to convict her here in Star Wars traffic court. So yeah, here Hera stands trial. And notice that she wears her headpiece, but not the goggles, which just kind of looks wrong, like Ahsoka without her headband, and it just kind of like had the weird hair.
I wondered what it was. I don't know. Thought something looked a little off about it.
Right now, but you know, I just kind of like my Hera ready to go Amelia Earhart style. But you know, like the first part of Amelia's flight. Oh God. Hera faces a panel of Chancellor Mon Mothma, as well as Senator Hamato Ziono, returning from episode 3. Ziono is father to Kazuda Ziono from the animated Star Wars Resistance show, as well as Senator Marwood from episode 3. Now, back then there was a Grand Senator and Senator Rodrigo joining them, but now on this panel is a certain familiar Mon Calamari. Yeah, this is definitely Admiral Akbar. star with the same head coloration, the same Admiral badge. It's a wrap sheet. Trying to force it in there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But there's also a Celestian, which of course is the same race as Nyanund. Now this ain't Nyan. He shows up in The Rise of Skywalker years after this and doesn't look this old. This Celestian has a handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
And he's my best friend. Among the observers in the gallery are a bunch of human New Republic officials. There's an Ishi Tib and a white chin Mon Calamari. There's an Ithorian race, and there seems to be a Mon Calamari prosecutor for the state and for the defense. Dun, 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 dun. Chopper.
Her right there. Oh, but the arrow's in the way. This woman in the top left looks like she's wearing like a Fire Nation outfit.
And Hera's first
to me.
officer,
Yeah, see, look.
Meanwhile, the chains at the pendant that Mon Mothma wear to clasp her cape look very much like the ones worn by Caroline Blackiston when she played the character in Return of the Jedi. Now, as the panel deliberates, the doors whoosh open and in struts Captain Carson Teva in a flyboy jacket. Even that Ishi Tib and the Mon Calamari behind Hera lean over to each other, clearly saying something like, "Get this man into Poe and Finn's Brotherhood of the Traveling Jacket." Xiono dismisses Hera's report as a Jedi fairy tale, reading,
Jedi. False Jedi. Star maps, star whales, distant galaxies. Honestly, are we to believe any of it?
Now, Baylan also just...
That scene, that moment plays almost beat for beat, cadence for cadence, like a segment from the X-Files. I referenced it in my reaction, but like it was just like, ooh, it's immediately where my brain went.
Describe these events as children's stories come to life, and it just kind of feels like a meta defense from Dave Filoni on his version of Star Wars, that just because something sounds like a kid's story with magical wolves and witches doesn't mean it isn't plausible and cool. Xiono completely objects to Hera's mention of Imperial Remnant, calling it sensationalism, reminding us of the kind of people in our world who get offended on behalf of neo-Nazis when you call neo-Nazis out for doing neo-Nazi things. Meanwhile, will not stand for this.
Yep.
What about the conflict on Mandalore?
Gideon was a warlord acting on his own. There's no proof of a greater conspiracy.
This line confirms the timeline of these Star Wars series. Ahsoka is definitely set after the events of The Mandalorian Season 3.
At least at this point, yes.
Which ended with Moff Gideon's base on Mandalore. And Gideon was not acting alone. He met with the pro-Imperial Shadow Council. He was working on clones of himself, and on that Shadow Council was Gilad Pellaeon, Thrawn's right-hand man from the Timothy Zahn novels, and someone who actually made a voice cameo in the Rebels finale. I'm actually beginning to think Senator Xiono might have been bought off by this council. But then maybe voice returns.
Yeah.
3PO.
I love how Mon Mothma completes his sentence. Anthony Daniels returns to play the character, at least to voice him.
Yeah.
Because if you look closely at the costume, I just don't know if that's Anthony Daniels. The guy's getting up there in age. If you take a look at 3PO's neck here, it just looks a lot thicker than usual. The head is a bit tilted back when Anthony Daniels is like an expert mind.
Yeah, there's the body movement didn't feel like Anthony to me, but it was definitely clearly his voice. But it definitely, I would presume somebody else was in the suit during for the shoot itself.
The actor always has a very specific way he holds the character.
Yeah,
he typically leans his head forward and pulls his shoulders back. But either way, 3PO is here on behalf of Senator Leia Organa. And it's just such a nice workaround since, you know, Carrie Fisher's no longer with us. We can't really have Leia appear here in person.
Somebody made a really good comment because I called it out like it's such a power play what she did to stand up for them and to call him out all at once. And like I called out the practicalness of not having like a digital Leia, post-mortem Leia here showing Carrie Fisher or anything like that. Somebody pointed out it's like a double power play in the way that she does all this, but it's so like inconsequential and beneath her to come herself. So she sends her droid. So it's like a double layered insult. I didn't even think about it on that aspect. But yeah, I like that.
Unless they were to do some like nightmarish Rise of Skywalker VFX that none of us really need right now. Just having 3PO instead works so great. Actually, if you listen closely when that guard is giving him guff, you can hear 3PO saying,
"How rude."
He says, "How rude." Exactly the same way as he does to that Cloud City Protocol droid in Empire Strikes Back who swears Ichuta at him.
Yeah.
Nice to see a familiar face. Ichuta. How rude.
Yes, ichuta is a Hati's profanity. Naturally, as 3PO introduces himself, we do hear a leitmotif of John Williams' main Star Wars theme. And remember, Hera and 3PO actually met in Rebels Season 1, Episode 3, Droids in Distress, which ends by revealing 3PO and R2-D2 were researching the crew of the Ghost on behalf of Bail Organa, which would later lead to Hera joining the Phoenix Squadron. So she really has 3PO to thank for her current position. 3PO and Leia are covering for Hera, saying that Leia ordered the mission to Cetos.
Being regrettably unaware that Senator Ziono had held a vote against such a mission. Without her.
Yeah, the way 3PO leaves that pause before without her is so great. He's kind of making this political charge, an implication that Ziono rushed the vote without allowing the great Senator Leia Organa to be present for it. Moves like this, though, are going to eventually cost Leia a lot of political capital and leave her with fewer allies when she's ousted during the events of the Bloodline novel. Yeah. That Leia is currently leader of the Defense Council, which will probably set her up to form her own militarized faction, the Resistance, after she leaves. Now, Ziono makes a big mistake. He says that they can't admit evidence from a mere droid and chopper.
Yes, I didn't get to keep that in here because I was saying something at this moment, but like when he talks shit about we can't take evidence from a droid, and it is fucking like a little thing from like from Carson, like Chopper getting riled up, and he's like, no man, no, it's okay. Like Chopper was about to murder everybody in this room, specifically Ziono. Like, look, no.
The intro of this video to see what Chopper
does so good.
Next. Yeah, we got a post-credit scene of this video. You're gonna stick around all the way to the end. Now, there is a screen on the far side of this room with Orbesh text. Across the top of it translates to New Republic, and then on the right, Hall of Justice Docket. Now, the scrolling Orbesh beneath on the right is kind of hard to make out, but I can see the word case in a few instances, C-A-S-E, so it's probably just case numbers on the docket for that day. But on the left side of the screen are red and blue cells that might correspond to the red and blue lines on that star map grid, which could refer to possible legal jurisdictions where these crimes were committed. And a reminder that the galactic star map had new boundary lines drawn by Imperial cartographers during the Age of the Empire that didn't always align with the way rebel factions would organize. This is something that was discussed by the ISB in the show Andor. Remember that show where they could just get a lot of interesting, juicy drama out of a debate over legal jurisdictions? Okay, moving on to Ahsoka. Still in hyperspace with the Purgle, Ahsoka trains with both of her lightsabers now, holding both reverse like daggers, reminding us of Ahsoka in the later seasons of Clone Wars when she wielded her green lightsaber and her shorter yellow-green Shoto blade. Hayden Christensen returns as Anakin Skywalker, wearing his Clone Wars era Jedi armor with the crest on the pauldron, and he says,
"In this war, you will face more than just droids. General Grievous, Visage Ventress, even Count Dooku."
Yeah, and it seems like since encountering Anakin in the World Between Worlds, Ahsoka is back to being comfortable with her old master, seeing him not as a painful memory to block out, but a source of inspiration. And yes, this was—
God, I love that so much. Again, there's like people saying that she didn't change at all throughout the season, and that she's the exact same character as when we opened the season. I swear people are just wanting to be upset and are just making shit up. Like, because it's... they're not watching it at all.
It was a recording made during the Clone Wars.
But God, man, I got such a kick out of that.
Some of you might not know who Asajj is.
Yeah, man, like, it's like she was so afraid to accept any part of Anakin that was a part of her prior to that reunion, prior to that, that acceptance, that just because he fell, that doesn't taint every lesson that he gave or every skill she honed from him. Like, his wisdom, who he was as a person, the things that he held dear were not lost because of the decisions he eventually made that were his own, you know. And you could see her here in her demeanor, the way she carries herself, the way she interacts with everybody else. She's much more light, both visually, but also emotionally light. She jokes, she smiles, she's open, she's unburdened. Like, and she was carrying this cloud, this weight around her every time we've met her in live action, and it's dissipated wholly. Like, she's like she's completely back to like pre-exile, self-exile from the Jedi Order, Ahsoka. Like, it just feels like she's back to when she was actually confident in everything around her in her life, her station, and what she stood for and fought for and all that. It just feels like she's reconnected with that innocence in a way.
Ventress is shame on you
and hope.
Shame. Just kidding. We make this videos for everybody. So here's who Asajj Ventress is. She's an awesome character, a recurring villain in the Clone Wars series. She's a Dathomirian warrior who served as Dooku's acolyte, aspiring apprentice. She actually rejoined her Dathomirian Night Sisters in Clone Wars season 4. They baptized her into the Coven, and this is around the time when the Night Sisters came into conflict with Grievous and Dooku. And sorry to disappoint you, Asajj Ventress is dead now, but who knows? This show is obsessed with Night Sister history. She might come up again. Maybe she's in one of those coffins. That'd be fun. Probably not, though. Now we hear Anakin's recording say,
Doubtful.
As your master, it's my responsibility to prepare you, so practice these forms often, or at least more than I do.
So beyond Anakin's recurring training throughout the Clone Wars series, this recording actually reminds us of two things. Rebels, Season 2, Episode 18, Shroud of Darkness, when Ahsoka actually listens to a different recording alongside Ezra.
I've made some adjustments to the classic Form 4 techniques that I think you'll find work well against droids and other ranged attackers. Here.
And by using two sabers during this training session, Ahsoka is essentially doing Form 4, applying the new lessons that Anakin prescribed after messing things up in his 2-on-1 saber fight with Dooku in Attack of the Clones. But specifically, Anakin saying the words, "As your master, it's my responsibility to prepare you," echoes Tales of the Jedi Episode 5, when Anakin puts Ahsoka through a test beyond droid combat using Rex and clone troopers to try to stun her over and over and over again.
This is about life and death. And as your master, I'm responsible for
the life and death motif again.
If you can hold off Rex and the boys, you'll be ready for anything on the battlefield. Well, yeah. Anything with a blaster, at least.
Chillingly, this episode of Tales of the Jedi ends with Ahsoka and Rex flashing forward to the Clone Wars series finale right before they face other clone troopers during Order 66. So dramatic, so amazing, because Ahsoka will have to put this clone trooper defense to the test. Also, fun fact, young Kanan Jarrus, then known as Caleb Doom, cameos early on this episode as a fanboy totally crushing hard on Ahsoka's moves. It's a really good episode. You should watch it. It's only like, 12 minutes or something. Now, the recording says,
if we get separated,
check out my reaction over on the Real Rejects.
You need to be able to make it on your own. Don't be afraid. Just remember what I taught you and trust your instinct.
I like how right on the words "taught you," the framing aligns with Ahsoka's blade right against Anakin's face. Now, while this is a recording, it just feels like Anakin is talking to her in real time, and it's kind of wonderful.
I know you can do this, Ahsoka.
And then she gives him the bow.
It's also kind of sad because it reminds me of that scene in Minority Report when Tom Cruise talks to the recording of his dead son as if it's a conversation in real time. Ahsoka says Anakin made 20 more of these recordings and this was his last one.
He made 20 or more of these recordings. This was his last one. He was a good master.
Now the music swell after this line kind of sounds like Yoda's theme. It kind of feels like she's saying this out loud to Baylan, who used her doubt about Anakin's incomplete tutelage against her. And I hope some of the other 20 recordings were just Anakin bitching about Obi-Wan, or really seeing what he was gonna say to Padme that day.
That'd be hilarious.
Or I hate sand. I hate sand. I hate sand. Coarse, rough, irritating, gets everywhere. How do I get everywhere with her? Now, inside Ahsoka's locker are a few training remote droids, like the one Luke trained with on the Falcon, and like the ones Ahsoka wrecked while she was training at the beginning of that Tales of the Jedi episode. We see one yellow, one blue, and one green here. Huyang debates with Ahsoka about the odds the Purgle took them to the right galaxy even.
I think the odds are pretty good.
No, in fact, they're terrible. Astronomically terrible.
Yes, droids like this are always acutely aware of the probabilities.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Actually, speaking of that moment in Empire Strikes Back, the T6 having to fly through this minefield definitely parallels that asteroid field after the Hoth escape. And actually, Dr. Huyang says,
"We're going to get pulverized if we stay out here much longer."
Which is a lot like what they're saying when they're trying to get out of the asteroid field. Now, these mines in the minefield are called orbital mines, and they actually first appeared in the Poe Dameron annual comic number 1. What we see here is an insane number of them. TIE fighters can supposedly hold 6 of these at a time, but I don't know how Thrawn would have had this many of them after being suddenly exiled to Peridia. I guess the Chimera just had like a whole bunch of them. I like how the Purgle all out of this thing. So apparently Peridia is not the end of their road. They can also swim upstream as well as they can swim downstream. From the Eye of Sion comes 9 of the fighters that we saw back in episode 3. Star Wars is official.
Well, I understood that at least that they were helping Ahsoka. You know, they weren't, I don't know, maybe they did come to CTOS to make that migration here Maybe that was their plan. Maybe CTOS is just another one of their many, many pit stops. But my understanding, or at least hope, especially based on them piecing the hell out, because they definitely didn't come there to die if they're running away to live, is that they only came there because when Ahsoka reached out, they knew what she needed, where she needed to go, and took her. But they got there, weren't met with a very warm welcome, and said, nah, I think we good. Bye.
Officially called these RP-82 Fiend Fighters, or that might just be the name of Shin's fighter in particular, but in the past I pointed out how their design seems to be based in part on the Clone Wars era Belbelab 22, as well as the real-world MiG-15 that was a Soviet fighter used in the Korean conflict in the early 50s, as well as the P-51 Mustang and the F-2F Brewster Buffalo. Ahsoka uses these floating bones of the Purgle in the ring of the planet as cover from these fiends, so whether the Purgle are alive or dead, they are just going to be used as cover. On the surface of Peridia, we get this shot of the Chimera over the fortress, and all the statues that we talked about in the last episode seem to be bent backwards so that the faces are facing up. In addition to their silhouettes reflecting the columns of Malachor in the Rebels Season 2 finale, I'm still wondering about the functions of these towers, and again, I think it's possible that they're just kind of like radio beacons that can blast Night Sister voices wherever they need them to go. Now, we have to talk about how this fortress
Except they're all pointing in the same direction.
Zepho, it sounds like. The Zepho are an ancient race of Dathomir-linked force wielders in the game Jedi Fallen Order. Last week, you may remember, I spotted some of that Sith Urkatot runes above the door of the fortress, and actually Tommy J. Wall on Twitter came through with this translation: praise Kujet, ruler of all, may his reign last for all time. Kujet was the cruel leader of the Zepho, and it's actually his tomb you explore in the Jedi Fallen Order game. So from this, we know the Zepho and the Dathomiri have this kind of parallel ancestry, as both of them are races from another galaxy who immigrated to the planet of Dathomir in our galaxy after leaving this place. But it seems like some of the Dathomiri had to stay behind. There are also some Zepho hieroglyphs from Jedi Fallen Order on the exterior balcony wall behind Thrawn in that one scene in episode 6 after he lets Sabine take off. Hieroglyphs that, if we're not mistaken, also seem to appear on the arch of the Coruscant courtroom behind the dais. So I don't know, maybe the set designers of the show are just throwing them in everywhere. Morgan Elsbeth hands Thrawn research on Ahsoka from the Inquisitorial database, referring to the Jedi Hunters, the Inquisitors, of which Marok was one, making me wonder how long he was being Night Sister puppeted under that Inquisitor armor.
That's a good point.
How many people are they puppeting within different organizations of Star Wars? But we actually know Ahsoka's name was written in Orbesh on the Inquisitors list in that 2017 Darth Vader #7 comic. And Thrawn realizes
The master was General Anakin Skywalker.
an important fact. She's surprised he didn't already know. She served
I am kind of surprised he didn't already know that.
Battles as a commander, but really in this moment, I think Thrawn is putting together that.
But he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't around prominently by that point. I don't think he was officially, in the canon at least, I don't think he was officially a part of the military at this point. He was aware of, I think, all the generals and stuff like that, but maybe he wouldn't have taken note of the Padawans of the time. I don't know. I know he had a direct connection with Anakin from what I remember, but I don't know. It was a little thing. I was like, I am kind of surprised he didn't just know that, because Anakin, even so, being a prominent figure and his deductive abilities of figuring out who Anakin eventually became playing out, I would just imagine he would have made sure to know certain facts about this person, of interest. But maybe he underestimated needing to know anything about. It doesn't seem like a Thrawn thing, to be honest. Like, it does feel like something he should have already known. But yeah, it is what it is.
That her master became Darth Vader.
However, we are getting to know our adversary. And if she's anything like her master, she'll be unpredictable and quite dangerous.
And Thrawn continues.
Which is why we must control all variables. Put her on a path of her own choosing, so that no matter which direction she takes, we'll always be one step ahead of her.
Yeah, this is a Thrawn we know from Rebels and the Timothy Zahn novels. He often lets his enemies escape so that they can play right into his bigger plan. Ezra and Sabine, meanwhile, are traveling with the Noti, whose homes have turned into mobile trailers like covered wagons. A toddler Noti waves at them, and it looks like this toddler has a knitted plush doll of a Noti. Ezra wears a kind of scaled chainmail, which some have speculated could be made of stormtrooper dog tags. But we have to note that stormtroopers in Star Wars have never been known to have dog tags. If they were, they'd probably be Imperial insignia, you know, not like real world American GI dog tags. Also, wearing dog tags of like dozens of stormtroopers that he killed would just be, I think, a more violent move than this Jesus era of Ezra seems to be up for.
I don't subscribe to that one either.
The original trilogy.
The Empire was defeated.
Battle of Endor.
The Emperor died.
That's what people say.
That's what people say, huh? Sabine's skepticism sounded a bit like our first step toward this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Poor Oscar Isaac. He gets dragged for that too much. You're a great actor, Oscar Isaac. They just gave you some poopy dialogue to say. Also, Ezra clarifies that Zeb is training recruits. And it's our first mention of Zeb on this series. Finally, we have one more episode and we know Lucasfilm made a live action Zeb for that cameo in The Mandalorian. So if we don't get a reunion between Zeb and Ezra in this finale,
Zeb.
Riot. Ezra is surprised that Ahsoka took Sabine on as an apprentice.
You trained a little before, back when I was first learning.
I remember.
He's referencing Sabine's brief training with the Darksaber under Kanan Jarrus in the Rebel Season 3 episode Trials of the Darksaber, one of the best of the Rebel series. If you watch it, we see the Great Mothers Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropa arriving, and we see why Thrawn let Ahsoka go so that she could try to sync with Sabine, and that would ping the Force cell phone towers for these Night Sisters to triangulate her position. It's interesting to see Morgan joining this ritual, chanting along. The Night Sisters are a coven. Their sorcery is probably amplified by their numbers. But these Night Sisters immediately respond to Thrawn without hesitating. They call him our Lord. So why are the Night Sisters so loyal
I
to
don't get
Thrawn?
it, man.
Well, as Baylan and Shin talked about last episode, they are desperate to flee Peridia, and Thrawn's ship and the Eye of Sion seem to be their best bet. But I do sense that the moment they'll get what they want from him, they're gonna turn on him. They're just flattering his ego to butter him up. Bendu did warn that Thrawn would be defeated with many arms and a cold embrace, and if that didn't apply to the Purgle, it could apply to the zombified Night Brothers and Night Sisters in those caskets.
That could be. That's I like that.
Kind of resemble plankton. Plankton do break down sea particles in the ocean. Maybe these are space plankton.
That's what I thought too.
There is a such thing in Star Wars known as air shrimp. Those are like on the border of atmospheres. These are just in open space. But I like the idea of seeing these aquatic-esque creatures because they may actually be helping Ahsoka mentally return to an aquatic headspace of the world between worlds, because when she channels the Force, the sound does drop away as if she's being plunged into something or in a kind of sensory deprivation tank.
Oof. God, the sound design in this show is unlike the others, man. Ooh.
Ooh, that thud on Clotho's eyes opening is just so scary. Ahsoka goes from thinking she's talking to Sabine, her sister figure, to instead locking eyes with a Night Sister witch that she didn't.
Well, it's the thing. Like, she did connect to Sabine, and she did see Sabine. It's just the government's watching her call, listening on the line. Her phone's tapped, so to speak.
No was on this group chat. It's kind of like Dorothy trying to talk to Annie M in the crystal ball, but instead it's actually the Wicked Witch of the West with her. Always scared the crap out of me as a kid. Thrawn tells Shin to kill Sabine and Ezra.
And take your place in the coming empire.
Wow, so it seems like Baylan is sensing Shin's interest in the political power Thrawn is promising, and Baylan's diverse.
See, I get the, I talked about this a little bit in my reaction, is like, every conversation he and Shin have had, she gives off just the way she talks, the words she chooses to use, especially with her like seeming childlike excitement of the prospect of Ezra being someone like her, raised in this way after the fall of the Jedi. I get the sense that she just wants somewhere to fit in and belong. She, you know, he probably picked her up at some point in the absence of the Jedi Order. And for better or for worse, maybe he has genuinely cared for her and what he's been teaching her and what he hopes to garner out of this connection. But it seems all she wants is stability and a place and a people to call her own. And right now, that's just him. And this hope for something greater that he's promising in this world as well. And, you know, he's more interested right now, at least, in finding out what he's sensing here, what has been calling to him across the stars to take this journey. That's his priority. Knowing hers, finding a people, finding a place, a home, or something, whether it be power or just somewhere to belong, in some kind of way and live and make a life. You know, he's like, hey, do these things, win your place in this new empire, find that cushy future you've been hoping for. Maybe she was an orphan. Maybe she had a horrible life. Obviously, she doesn't have any other family outside of this. Most Jedi don't, as they're being brought into these little small covens in a way. You know, I get that idea, because then they fracture by the end of this, and the people she was meant to become one with abandon her because there's no longer any strategic value in pursuing this current cause. And then she's left completely alone while everybody else was fractured at the start of the series. Ahsoka and Sabine had this broken relationship. They barely even wanted to be around each other, though they really did, but they didn't know how to deal with it. And they didn't know how to talk to each other. They were at odds. They were abrasive. They both kind of held some longing, but also resentment for one another. That is both kind of internalized, but also externalized. They were in the situation that Baylan and Shin are now. While they started off as a unit in sync, in tandem, working for a united cause and front, they've now diverged, and Shin is left crippled. Unlike Sabine, who was very much like that early on, butting heads with Ahsoka, doing things her own way rather than working with her team, her unit, always on her own, you know, pushing against the grain and being pushed down and defeated. You know, like if you parallel that episode, the way it ended, to the first episode when Sabine and her faced off, and she was the one that was left injured. Well, she's not physically injured here. She is emotionally injured here at the end of this. They just follow opposite trajectories and end up at the other side, even to the point where her enemies have extended her their hands for help. And she doesn't know how to process that because of the way she's been trained and the way she's been taught to view them. Baylan, in his own pain and his own way to cure and mend his faults with the Jedi Order, failed to equip her for a situation like this. You know, it's just wild to me. I love it.
So does Baylan know that Thrawn is setting them up as bait? Does Baylan willingly throw Shin under the bus here?
These are good questions.
He is trying to set up Shin to take the path that is best for her.
Your ambition drives you in one direction. My path lies in another.
This actually ties into their namesake, the wolves of Norse mythology, Skoll and Hati. Skoll pursues the sun, the source of light.
Oh, that's a good
Hati
point.
Pursues the moon, which is a mere reflection of the sun's light. Skoll is after something deeper than Hati. So what is that thing? I've speculated Bendu, the Mortis gods, the Wellspring priestesses, but in yesterday's video I talked about Den of Nerds theory, Abeloth. Watch the
I was about to say that. I saw somebody mention that in the comments, and I did see, I think, somebody's video coming up with an image of Abeloth, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't even think about Abeloth. It didn't even cross my mind, and that would be insane. But anyway, maybe we'll talk about it here, because maybe they'll go into it a little bit.
Video for more information on that. Maybe he's after that.
No, they're just gonna make us go to the video. Basically, they are like the most powerful, like, celestial entity, deeply rooted and associated with the dark side. I don't know what to compare it to necessarily. Satan, basically. I don't know. Like, there's the Father, the Son, the daughter, the Mortis gods themselves, and then there's Abeloth. That's at least my remembrance. I could be off on that, but I believe Abeloth was the mother, the precursor to them. Beloved Queen of the Stars, most powerful force entity. Her dark side powers and or immortality derived her from the pool of knowledge. She was the mother, kept peace between the fathers, warring sons and daughters. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I remember that right enough. Anyway, check out that video. I'm sure it'll have much more information on them. I don't think we'll go that route, but that would be insane if we did. I would love if we explore the Zepho, because Fallen Order seems to have, at least as of Jedi Survivor, to drop their interest in all of that. Be like, oh, well, their trails left to the unknown region, so we there's no more information here that Cordova can glean from them. So It seems like they may have either left our galaxy to come here and found this, or they came from here, came to our galaxy, and then retreated back. One or the other. I'd love to get more information on that, because the Zepho, for being introduced, is just like, there's so much potential for exploration, and their ties to Dathomir and its ties to Dathomir. I'd love to explore that more.
Maybe the Rakatans? I love how we still have no idea, but I would say of the various options, the closest to the sun, really, I think our best bets are Bendu or the Priestesses of the Wellspring of Life, or just something completely undefined yet. By the way, crazy detail about Baylan, spotted by Twitter user Nira592.
Oh yeah, I did see somebody mention this.
List of names: Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, R2-D2, C-3PO, and Ben. If this is just a Star Wars set designer Easter egg, that Ben would be old Ben Kenobi, but if it is a hit list of some kind, hey, Ben Solo is around 5 years old right now. He's not Kylo Ren yet, he's just a little boy. Thrawn's night jumpers load into some LAG.
I think that's just some
Thrawn doesn't send
designer Easter eggs.
To avoid using resources. He wants to get Ahsoka on the ground and take up as much time as possible. Later, when these land, you can see some Orvesh on the side of the ship reading load point, and then up on the cylinder, the thing that looks like a vent, it reads vent. So the Noti caravan ends up in a chase that kind of feels a lot like John Ford's Stagecoach, which really every Western wagon chase that you see in movies is.
It did remind me of a wagon chase,
which was one of Ezra's favorite weapons to use back in his pre-lightsaber Dennis Menace phase in Rebel Season 1. Ezra shouts "Woopa woopa" to circle up the caravan, and they seal themselves up the way they do in their shells when they hide. When pioneers would do this is actually where the term "circle the wagons" comes from, as this would be how pioneers would protect the vulnerable in their caravan from outside raiders. Ahsoka jumps out of the T6 and rolls up to Baylan, and here you can see what a lot of folks have been chatting about, the green crystal on his belt buckle, which might be his old Kyber crystal before he replaced it with
I've been seeing some people talking about that online.
One new detail that I just spotted is that Shin seems to have chunks of that same green crystal in her Padawan braid, only now
interesting.
In the exterior light. So Baylan may have given her pieces of this broken Kyber, both keeping the crystal close. Whereas Ahsoka back on Cetos first only used one blade while fighting Baylan, now she ignites both of them, confident in her training from Anakin to use the 4-4 style that he never truly mastered against Dooku in Attack of the Clones, because the last time he used two blades, he gave into the dark side to do it to Dooku. This time, Ahsoka has transformed into Ahsoka the White, and Baylan, shaming her over her connection to Vader, no longer holds her back. Meanwhile, Ezra turns down his lightsaber.
The Force is my ally.
And what an ally, because our man uses Force pushes, and even it looks like a possible Force kick, because we totally hear the Force on that kick. But
yeah, take that. Everybody going back to the barge on Return of the Jedi, you know, with Luke's missing kick. Force kick cannon. Anyway, what I was going to say is, like, for Ezra, I know, like, again, people are real mad that he didn't take his lightsaber. We didn't see Ezra with his lightsaber. But if you think about it, with his willfulness, what drew him in initially as a Padawan, as somebody who was infatuated with potentially learning it, he was always so overly excited to get his hands on a lightsaber, like a kid would be, you know, going into it, you know, rough around the edges, like going to it. Oh, give me the good stuff. Let's get with the laser swords. Let's swing some stuff, do some damage. Like, more the physical element of the appeal of becoming a Jedi. That's the symbol of them that's known throughout the galaxy, is the laser swords they wield. So, like, he was always very much attached to finally graduating to getting his own. But that's not what he was trying to learn earlier on. It was that control. It was that extension of self. It was feeling the Force, the important spiritual aspects of it that he kind of struggled with in the earlier days. And I just feel like this is such a full circle moment to where he went to face Thrawn with no weapon, only the Force. And now, having lived this hermit, humble lifestyle, all these years, and surviving just fine, defending himself with what he has and what he carries himself, you know, it feels like that at this point, it would feel so alien to him to wield it. I'm sure he would get right back into the swing of things just fine and kick butt just fine. But right now, he doesn't need it. If anything, he probably even knows that Sabine probably needs it more than him in the way that she's needed it in the past up until this point in her journey. Like, the further progress she's made practicing and learning to wield it, it's very much an asset to her. And Shin having a lightsaber didn't seem to interrupt her cause an issue for him at all, because he could dodge the blaster fire, he can repulse, and he can hold back her blade, because the Force is all Ezra needs. Complete 180 and completion of his journey and his arc as a Padawan to fully realized Jedi here today. Thank you. Goodbye. Moving on.
Just be a non-contact stunt, kind of like Luke's classic Force kick in Return of the Jedi. Yes, that's definitely what that was. It just kind of seems like there are a few obvious non-contact hits in this fight. But Ahsoka's duel with Baylan is mixed with interesting flute sounds. And listen closely when Baylan shoves her back. Yeah, it kind of seems like
there's some interesting stuff, yeah.
It's a battle of musical frequencies, and I love it. Shin swipes at Ezra and singes some of his hair.
Yep.
Close.
The way he dodges her blows reminds me of Luke's Force projection fighting Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi, or Chirrut Imwe dodging stuff. But then this awesome moment happens. Yeah, Shin's lightsaber blade contracts, reacting to Ezra's use of the Force. Lightsabers are supposed to channel the energy of the user, so this is basically Ezra showing his mastery over the Force compared to Shin. The gunships approach, and Ezra starts making some classic Rebels Ezra quips here.
Yeah.
But the two of them get impatient. Remember, Baylan's advice to Shin about impatience, it proves true here. It gives Shin the upper hand. Meanwhile, there's another fun musical sting with Ahsoka's duel with Baylan.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah,
I love how Baylan's music always has this piano-like trill to it, because it just feels tragic, but it also feels like there's this higher purpose to it. It's so also very different from anything we've heard in Star Wars up until this point, really, and it just stands out and makes him feel so like he's just playing a different game than everybody else. It might look the same as the game everybody else is playing, but he's here for a very different purpose. His mission is a very different mission. It feels ethereal and disconnected, but also, I don't know, painful, but also hopeful. It's all these notes all at once in these classic little trills of the strokes of the keyboard. And I love it. And it just, again, it's all these moments like that, this character, their philosophy, and Rey's performance. It just makes me so sad knowing that we're not going to get him, at least in this role. Whether or not Dave intended for this character to have a larger purpose in the grand scheme of things, or if he meets his end at the end of the season anyway. Either way, I'm going to be sad whichever happens, whether we move on, this character ceases as part of the story, or they carry on and maybe somebody carries on the character forward with a recast. I don't know. It's just like Ray Stevenson really makes this character come to life.
Piano chords we actually heard over Baylan's death march in the opening sequence of the season. Ahsoka says that she doesn't have to beat Baylan and uses Huyang's cover fire to escape, and we stay with Baylan for a long take as he's thinking this over. He's further along his path as his wolf chases the sun. And you all know, I was looking at the background like crazy, looking for any Bendu-esque stirring among these land formations. Nothing yet, but I will keep looking. And I love that we see Thrawn is commanding all these units on a hexagonal board display. Like he's treating all these pieces like he's playing generic hollow chess. While dueling Shin, Sabine uses her Vambrace to block a lightsaber hit, so yeah, that Vambrace must be Beskar. The night troopers surround them. One actually has red cloth coming out of his helmet.
Oh, wow, ew.
You hear them all shouting, go, 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 go! And when
maybe they are undead. That's a little weird. Didn't notice that before.
So I think it's safe to say that these guys are not zombified.
Okay, never mind. That's a good point.
Joe Schreiber's 2009 book, not corpses being reanimated with Night Sister magic, but just kind of worn down stormtroopers. I gotta say, they were a lot scarier when they were just chanting Thrawn's name last episode, but I do think necromancy is still in play with those coffins.
Yeah,
Thrawn is
for sure.
surprised by this.
The coffins, yes.
A rare sight. Almost like the Jedi of old.
Jedi of old. Kind of wonder how old Thrawn is referring to, because I think what's most impressive is how little these Jedi relied on their lightsabers. Recalling the way Yoda initially confronted Dooku without using his lightsaber in Attack of the Clones, or again, our man Chirrut Imwe as a guardian of the wills, the Jedi of old. Thrawn reveals the whole point of this battle was just to stall. His holo display shows the Chimera with the containers loaded in, the red Orbesh text translates to cargo load, and the number ticks up from 81 to 83 80 to 85. Why 2 at a time? Do they got those corpses doubled up head to toe in each of those? Also, does it really take 3 days to move like 100 coffins when you got a few hundred night troopers?
That's a good
these
point.
Coffins float? Are 4 out of 5 of these things coffin flopping?
Oh!
Thrawn says,
Jesus, that scared me.
On our side now, and I should keep it that way.
Time. Now, I assume Thrawn is just talking about being a step ahead of the game, but hey, we got 1 episode left, folks. We could see hyperspace time travel as of yet. Probably not, but a nerd can dream. Ahsoka reunites with Sabine, and then...
Hey, I still think if the whales don't come back, there's going to be a portal to the world between worlds, and we will use it to bridge the gap back to our galaxy to reunite with our forces. Because otherwise, yeah, we're pretty trapped here.
A big hug with Ezra, followed by, I think, the first laugh that we've heard from Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Ezra ends the episode with...
Guys, getting a feeling. I think I might be going home after all.
What is home to Ezra? Is it just a planet of Lothal, or is it just anywhere so long as he's sharing a bunk with Zeb? No clue how they're gonna get back to our main galaxy. If all the Purgle have gotten the f out, maybe Ezra could activate his dormant link to these whales, combined with Ahsoka's fresher hook that she got by making eye contact with that Purgle back on Cetos. Or my hope is that they just pull an Ezra favorite and disguise himself with some of these dead Night Trooper armor and reverse coffin flop into those caskets. As
that is also possible, I guess. But with the Night Sisters, though, that's where that gets questionable, because they can feel them now, you know, across the galaxy or whatever, the threads of fate, whatever. They've had some gaps in their sight, obviously, up until this point, because they didn't predict Ahsoka arriving here. But with Night Sisters on board, just stowing away seems a little less likely.
God, while they're on the Chimera, I hope they find those Lothal ruined chunks, and Ezra finds Kanan's lightsaber among Thrawn's collection. Let me know how you want this season to end, and be sure to watch new Rockstars.
Okay, he said there's a post-credits to this reaction, to this breakdown. So I wonder what it is.
And stay tuned for a special finale predictions video that Tommy Bechtold and I are going to co-host here on the main channel over the weekend. And again, we got a post-credits scene to this video that you don't want to miss. But please support this channel by grabbing an Ahsoka-inspired Fulcrum shirt available at nerdriot.shop. Be sure to subscribe to the Break Room for episodes of WikiLeaks, our Ahsoka After Show. Subscribe to all 3 channels of the New Rockstars Network. Big thanks to Noah Chen for helping write and research this breakdown. You can follow me at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars. Thanks for watching. And without further ado, late last night, we all wondered exactly how pissed off Chopper was at Senator Ziono, and our amazingly talented editor Drew Coombs came up with an answer. Enjoy.
Ooh. Cannot admit evidence of this kind from a mere droid.
Transfer to manual control.
No. No. Oh, that was worth it. That was worth it. Yeah, great breakdown. I liked all that. He didn't bring up, well, he mildly brought up some of the stuff I wanted to talk about, but I interjected everything I wanted to say in this along the way anyway. I don't have too much to add by the end of this. It was a fun little episode for sure. I think there's some great deeper meaning and callbacks and, you know, character growth moments for everybody involved, not just, you know, Ahsoka herself, but, you know, there's little bits in everybody. And again, the one thing I will bring up, no one's quite talked to Ezra at all just yet about Thrawn getting the fuck off of this planet. Nobody's mentioned it. I think he probably could assume in some way it might be connected by the way he helps or, you know, supports Sabine's unwillingness to talk about it by saying, okay, we don't have to talk about it. Either he doesn't care at this point, you know, he's beyond that, but at the same time, I do feel like we need to have that conversation a little more openly. But yeah, man, we got 1 episode to go. They did say there's the possibility there could be a season 2 of Ahsoka, and we know that the Thrawn stuff, or at least whatever this is setting up or alluding to or building up to, the major aspects of it are going to connect into the crossover film that unites the whole of the Mandoverse on the big screen for a major united event kind of thing. So what which I presume will be Thrawn, but whatever this Force stuff is that is calling Baylan here, I only hope that at least by the end of this season, we get some answers to what that is, what his quest is, what drew him here. I want those answers. I know the Thrawn stuff's great. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to it, but this is just the prelude to that. We're going to get plenty of Thrawn later in more stuff. Right now, that's where my intrigue's at, is what is the crazy lore buried on this planet that where everybody else seems to be running the hell away from. I want to run towards it. I want to follow Baylan into the darkness to find out those answers. But guys, what did you guys think? Were there any Easter eggs that you guys found that maybe they missed here, or any little details that maybe they didn't address as well? Sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We're carrying on the conversation after the video. Hope you enjoyed the reaction. If it did, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you're not already. Make sure to subscribe to the Rockstars if you are not already. I'll have a link to the video down in the description as well. And before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Manny, Sherritt, Ryan, Karen, York, Coruscant, Margaret Grace, Melita, Robert Anguiano, Jeffrey Hale, M. Sephiroth, Jake and Trell, Eric Official, and Amy Becca. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. But that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. May the Force be with you always. Take care, everybody.